Hi everyone. In this tutorial, we're going to be going over adjustment layers in Photoshop. Alright, let's get started. So adjustment layers allow you to make color corrections to multiple or specific layers without making those changes permanent, so you can always go back and edit them or remove them completely. So with our layer selected, we could come up to Image, Adjustments, and then we have all of our color adjustments here. But if we do it through here, it's going to make the change permanent, and we want to do it as an adjustment layer. So I'll just show you what I mean here. If we change the hue saturation, I'm just going to bump the saturation way up and hit OK. Now there's no way to edit that and go back in and change it if we want to. We can undo it right now, but if we get too far along, we're not going to be able to go back and undo that. So what we want to do is make an adjustment layer for this castle. And I'm going to do that by going down to my Layers panel, and this little icon here, Create New Fill or Adjustment Layer. That's what you're going to click. And then we have all of the options here for the different adjustment layers we want. We also can do it through here, our Adjustment panel. And to open that, go to Window and hit Adjustments. And that's opening it right there. So we have all of the different adjustments here. We have brightness, contrast, levels, curves, etc. All of those. So we can just select the layer we want, and then we're going to go and put on an adjustment layer. So this photo here is a little washed out and could use some more contrast. We could use the brightness contrast one, but I prefer to use levels for doing the contrast. And what levels does is allows you to crunch the whites and blacks in to make the blacks darker and the whites brighter, and that will give us some more contrast. So I'm just going to click that, and what it does is add it above everything. So right now it's affecting all three of the layers below it. If we were to darken it up, it's going to darken all of these layers below it, and we can turn it off and on. So if we wanted to only adjust the castle layer, like in a previous tutorial where we're having the above layer affect only the layer below it, we want to have it selected and hold down the Alt key and then hover right in between the two till you see that arrow and then click. So it's no longer affecting this layer below it. It's only affecting this one because it has the arrow down to it. Okay, so I'm just going to put that back to where it was. So with the levels adjustment layer, what we get is this little thing here, and this is called the histogram. So this shows you your darks and your whites. So this slider here slides your whites. If we slide it, it's going to make the whites brighter. This one here, if we slide it, it'll make the blacks darker. And then this one here is your mid-range. So you can slide the whole thing to brighten the entire thing, or slide it this way to darken everything. So I just want to take a look to see what it was originally. So we definitely need to darken it and just get some of the blacks to pop out a little more. And you can turn it off and on just by turning off the eyeball here. Okay, we'll turn it back on. So what I'm going to do is drag the blacks here, which is this little arrow here. I'm just going to drag it a bit and just darken up those darks. You don't want to go too far in, or it's going to make everything way too dark and crunched. So probably right about there. You just kind of want to drag it to the beginning of this little hill here. And then I'll also do the same for the whites. And that's just going to brighten up where it's white. Alright, that's already looking a lot better with the contrast we've added. I'll turn it off and on just to see the difference. Yeah, it's not nearly as washed out. If we want, we can add multiple adjustment layers just to this one. So let's select our castle layer, go to our adjustments, and maybe we'll do a hue saturation, and we can bump the saturation up on this a bit. So I'll select that one, and we have a few different options with this one now. We have our hue here, and what that's going to do is just change the overall color. Now I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to put it back to 0. And I just did that by going into the number here and putting it back to 0. Alright, we can desaturate it, lower the saturation, or we can add a little more saturation. And I'll just add a little bit more to brighten it up a bit. And then we have our lightness option here where we can darken it or lighten it. But I think right where it was fine. So when we created our hue saturation adjustment layer, since we already had the levels one that was only affecting the castle, this one is automatically doing it. But if it wasn't, I'm just going to undo those. You just have to go in, make sure you select it, hold Alt, and click. And right now the levels one, since we took it off, isn't affecting it. It's doing all of them. So we'll select that, hold Alt and click. And right now those are both only affecting the castle layer. So that's what it looked like originally, and that's with our color adjustments on it. So that's looking nice. I'm going to turn those all off, and we'll deal with this one now. So these stairs are pretty creepy, and I think they'd look cool maybe in black and white, and with the levels really crunched hard to give it kind of a film noir, really harsh black and white lighting look. So let's try something like that. So we'll select it, go to our adjustment layer icon, and first thing we're going to do is go black and white, and that's just going to turn it to a black and white image. So it gives us some options in the black and white adjustment layer here where we can adjust the different colors in it and make them more black than the others or more shadowy. But I'm going to do all that just with the levels thing, I think. I'll just bring this up a bit and we'll go back to our stairs layer. So now we have the black and white on it. And right now it's affecting both layers below it, even this one. So we'll just hold Alt and set it to that one. Now it's only adjusting the stairs layer. Okay, so with that selected, we'll do a levels one again to this one. I'll select levels, and it's already affecting just this layer. And so then we're just going to crunch these levels a bit. And I might just go a little more extreme on this to give it that film noir look. And I'm just going to crunch those even more. Maybe something like that. So there's what it was like originally, and now like that with our adjustment layers. Alright, I like how that looks, and now let's do the other one. I'll turn those off, and we'll go to this layer. Alright, for this photo, it's a little underexposed and too dark. I want to brighten it up a bit. You can also mask out part of your image and do color adjustments to just that mask, and I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to use my quick selection tool and try to get a nice clean mask over my dog here. If I just drag over him, I can get that mask, and I'll just delete out some of this bottom part here. Okay, now with him masked out and the layer selected, I'll select my adjustment layer. And I think for this one, I'll do a brightness and contrast one and just try to brighten him up from the dark background and maybe add a little more contrast to him. So we'll do brightness contrast. If we select the mask here, we can make mask adjustments like you normally would. And if we select this icon here, we can make our layer adjustments. So let's brighten it up. And it's only brightening the dog because we have him masked. So we can brighten him up. We can also add some contrast to him if we want. And see, the background is unchanged. So if you just want to adjust certain parts of your image, this is how you can do that. And you can go back in and adjust your mask as well afterwards. So I see that I have some issues here with the mask. I'll just go to my brush. And I can just brush that part of the mask back out. Has some hard edges here. We can also feather it just to smooth out the mask a bit. And so that's how you can adjust just certain parts of your image by masking it and then using the adjustment layers for that mask. Okay, next I'll show you how to do some color adjustments when you're combining photos into one piece. So I have an image here that I've already masked out from a canal in Amsterdam. I'll just disable this layer mask so you can see what it looked like before. So the sky was just this plain white overcast sky, and I think I want to put a different one in there. So I'll just enable this mask again, and I'm going to grab this sky here, which is actually from Hawaii, but that's the great thing about Photoshop. You can just combine images and no one will know. So I'm going to drop it over top, and then I'll grab the layer and drag it below. So now the sky is right in there, and I can move it around. We can have an ocean behind there if we want, but I'll just lower it so we can get some of this nice blue sky. That already brightens it up and makes a huge difference just having a different sky. But now we want to adjust the color of these buildings here and give them a little blue just to match the sky and get some of that color from the sky into it. So I'll select the Amsterdam Canal, and I'm going to do a photo filter. And what that does is let you do an overall tint of a color to your image. Okay, so right now it's adjusting everything, so I want to just have it over top my canal. And right now it's on an orange filter, so if I change the density, you'll see that it's changing that. So this would be nice for a nice evening sunset, but what we want is a more blue one. So I'll turn that down and just go through some of my colors here. We have warming filters, which are going to be more orange, and then our cool ones are going to be more blues. So we'll just select that. It's a little too blue. It looks like early morning, so we can turn that down a bit. So just add a little bit of blue in. And that just kind of matches the sky and gives us some of that color. So if we turn it off and on, you can see the difference. Another thing I'll quickly do with this one is just take the sky and make it a reflection in the water here. Looks a little weird not having any of these clouds show up in the water. So an easy way to do that is just select my sky. I'm going to duplicate it by right-clicking, hit duplicate layer. We'll hit OK. And now I want to drag it above. Okay, so I have the sky here. What I want to do is have these clouds here in the water. So I'm going to go up to Edit, Transform, and I'll flip it vertically. Okay, now it's upside down. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just mask out everything but the clouds here and try to get them integrated into the water. And I'll just do that by selecting the layer, hitting my layer mask, and then I'll use a brush to brush it out. So I'm going to make this bigger and just start to mask out some of this sky. Okay, so I have it kind of in the spot where I want it. I can tighten this up a little bit. I'll switch it over to my white color and bring some of that back in. Now to get this to blend in nicely, we can use one of our different blend modes. I'll select the sky copy, which is this one, and let's try an overlay blend mode. So what that did is blend it nicely into the water here, and we're getting this look of reflections. We can adjust the opacity if we want, so if we turn it right down, it's off, and we can just slowly bring it back in. So 100% might be a little dark, but let's go down a bit, maybe something like that. Okay, so that looks nice and natural, and I don't think you'd ever know that that isn't the sky that's supposed to be there. So with some color correcting like this, it's going to feel like one picture and not two separate ones that don't belong together. And I'll just go through some different examples here. So I have some houses here, and I have this house here, and I'm going to mix them all together. I just want to give you some examples of having multiple photos layered on top of each other and how to go about color correcting them so they feel like they go together as one. Okay, so I'll drag this one into my scene here. So it definitely feels like it doesn't belong here, that it's just cut out. It needs a little more contrast and maybe some warmer color to it. So we'll put it here for now, and I'm going to put a sky in the background. I have these two here. I think I'll use this one and get some nice reds in it. So I'm going to drag it over to my scene, drop it in, and I'll drop it below. Just going to turn off this one for now. Already this sky matches this nicely. The reds and oranges in here go nicely with the sunset that we have in this picture. Nice warm oranges. So I won't have to do too much adjusting to this layer here. This layer, on the other hand, really doesn't look like it belongs. So we're going to do some color adjustments to it. First of all, I think I'm going to drop it in the back here and just have it behind these houses. Alright, so let's start doing some color adjustments. Maybe let's start first by doing some level adjustments, just to give it some contrast. So you see right now it's adjusting both the house and the sky because it's over both. So I'm just going to hold Alt and click, and now it's just adjusting the house here, not the sky. Okay, that's a little too dark, so I'm going to brighten it up a little bit more. Maybe bring my whites in. Okay, that looks okay for contrast to match, but now maybe we need to do a bit of a photo filter to it. So I'll select the house, and let's try a photo filter. And now we want something more orange, so I think our warming filter we can try. And if we just adjust the density, you can see how orange it gets. We'll bring it down a little bit. That's actually not looking too bad. Looks like it belongs back there. We can mix and match these all we want, so let's see if there's anything else we can use to make it blend in a little more. Maybe let's try hue saturation. So we have a few different options here. We don't want to change the overall color of it here, so I'll put that back to 0. We can adjust the saturation. We probably don't want more. Maybe just a little less saturation. And I don't know if we have to adjust the lightness at all. Maybe we can darken a little bit. Something like that. So these are starting to look nice and combined, like they all belong in one scene. And we did it all with just a few color adjustments here. Alright, I'm going to go on to this one where we have another sky replacement that I'm going to do. And I think I'll take this sky here. So here we had a bluer sky and it was cooler, kind of early morning. And I want to make it look more like an evening shot. So I'm going to take this sky here, and I'll drag it in, and just drop it behind. Move it up a bit. Alright, so now we have this nice evening sky with a lot of yellow in it, and then our image here has a lot of blue in it. So I think a photo filter will work well for this one. With our castle selected, we'll go to our adjustment layer, and we'll do a photo filter. We want to make sure it's just affecting the castle, so hold Alt and click, and now we can adjust that. So if we crank it all the way up, you can see how yellow it starts to get. And we can go pretty extreme with it to get that nice warm orange evening color. So that's without it, and bringing it up. Now that we've got these combined and looking like they go together, we can do an overall color adjustment if we want. So maybe the whole thing overall now needs some level adjustments. So if we go to our adjustments layer, and we'll do a levels adjustment. Since we didn't hold Alt and click here, it's adjusting the entire thing, so the castle and the sky. So if we pull that down, it's going to adjust everything. So we can darken up the blacks a bit, and also bring the whites up a little bit, just to brighten it and add a little more contrast. Alright, so just remember when you're making color adjustments, don't do them through here because these are going to be permanent changes. Do them as adjustment layers where you can come back in and edit them after the fact. There's a lot of different ones in here, but the main ones I use are the brightness and contrast, levels, exposure, hue saturation. I use photo filters a lot, and black and white if you want to change it to a black and white photo. The other ones I don't use that often, but feel free to play around with them and see if there's something you like. Alright, that's going to do it for this tutorial.